Welcome to episode 2 of the Fundamentally Sound podcast. I'm Jared. That is Zach. We're here to talk all things NBA basketball. How are you doing?
I'm good. NBA's back today. There's only one game tonight. Lakers and Hornets. Sounds like Luka's no longer on a minutes restriction. LeBron is scheduled to play, so that's good. I don't know how much he'll play, but I think we all kind of have a lot of opinions on the All Star weekend. I know you and I both watched is a very um, I wouldn't even say watch because it was like not good at
Had
all.
had it on.
Yeah,
We had it on.
had it
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
With the new format, it didn't work at all. Like Saturday was pretty cool, I guess, but like Sunday was just I don't know what they're trying to do anymore.
Yeah. So let's
Like
get
go yeah
let's get into it right away. Just start. I mean, we didn't watch the Rising Stars game at all on
yeah
Friday.
yeah
Um,
right.
which I mean, it's whatever. We'll get into Saturday then with our All Star weekend, All Star Saturday night. The
Yep.
skills competition. How do we feel about
Um
how do we feel about Chris Paul?
as a Bucks fan, like obviously we know what Chris Paul has tried to do. Hasn't won a ring, and I think some people like don't get me wrong, Hall of Famer, like very like bunch of accolades, like great career, never won a championship. It does not shock me though that he tried to cheat. Like I understand, like you're trying to win or whatever, but like these people pay to see Wemby, mostly Wemby, not really you as much, Chris, but like came to watch you guys like actually try, and I think they probably had a pretty good shot to win it, honestly. And then they got disqualified because they didn't even try to shoot. They just kind of did their threw their three attempts towards the basket. And then one thing was that the one security guard, whatever that was like denying the interviews, like was taking his job way too seriously, and that was another thing that you and I both had some comments on that as well. So
I just I think it's funny because like I don't know. I feel like I've definitely had that thought before.
right, right.
While watching the skills competition, like couldn't someone instead of shooting it just throw the basketballs really fast to get through it
Yeah.
and then run? But I guess
Mm.
I never really thought that someone would actually try it. But
Right, because like
I guess
yeah.
leave it to Chris Paul to be the one to go out there and convince Wemby to try something like that.
Yeah, and you
Um,
could tell Wemby was like not thrilled with it at all. It was like and Team Cavs ended up winning because, I mean, like we predicted, I think they like Donovan and Mobley, like they put together now a couple years. They know each other pretty well. Best team in the East, so not too surprised. But yeah, that in the skills challenge, that was probably the most entertaining part was
right.
CP3 and Wemby getting disqualified.
Yeah, it's definitely a weird way to start off All Star
Yeah,
Weekend. Just kind of like very, because then it took forever too for them to like review it and
right,
then disqualify
right.
them. And then, yeah, and then there was that whole thing with Allie LaForce trying to go get an interview and then like the NBA official like yelling at her while she was live on
Yeah,
air.
I'm like, I feel so like, boy, Alex, she's just trying to do her
Trying to do her
job,
job,
and
yeah.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
crazy.
it was.
But then
Uh,
we got into the 3 point contest. What did you think of the 3 point contest?
I mean, I think I was very surprised to see Dame go out early. You could kind of see like there was definitely like the scores were significantly lower than last year. I think there were like only a handful that like had like in the 20s. Everybody else was in the teens. Um, but Tyler Hero ended up winning it. Buddy Hield was the only one that had kind of like gave him a run for his money. But I think it goes back to like what we said last episode, how like these guys aren't like great shooters. Like they're all good shooters. Everybody in the 3 point contest can shoot, but I think it would benefit greatly if we had like the best shooters and not just like the bigger names, you know.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was gonna say. Like, I think the point that I made last week is
Right.
exactly what was wrong with the 3-point contest. I think the fact
Yeah.
that you had the big names in it was the issue because, like, obviously, obviously Dame being in it, like, makes sense because he's, back to back defending champion.
Yeah.
And but then you
Mhm.
just filled it with like Jalen Brunson and, like, I don't know, a bunch of other, like,
Yeah.
bigger
Cade
names.
wasn't. Cade
Yeah.
isn't like that good of a
Yeah,
shooter.
exactly. Yeah. Guys that were already going to be involved in All-Star weekend,
Hmm.
and you saw, I think only the three finalists scored 20 in their first round. And
Yep.
then, yeah, in the finals, like, it was just like Buddy and Tyler, and that was
And
it. And it,
Buddy missed his first seven, and if he had made one of those, he would have won. Like
right,
it was close towards the end, but
right.
um, yeah, I think there's definitely been a lot more entertaining 3-point contests and just kind of like um,
Because there's been better
I really
shooters.
yeah I usually find it more entertaining.
Yeah,
But
but
honestly, the dunk contest
yeah,
because of Mac
yeah, I
was
thought,
more entertaining.
I thought the 3-point contest was a dud this year.
It was
Yeah,
just kind of like
yeah. But I mean, luckily we had Mac. I mean,
yeah.
that was arguably, like, I wrote down here on my notes things I liked and things I didn't like from
Hmm.
All Star Weekend. There were only two things that I liked, and one of them was
Right.
Mac McClung. I mean,
Yeah, and
thank
yeah.
thank thank God for Mac McClung.
Uh-huh.
Like, single-handedly saving the dunk contest potentially. I mean, what he's
Hmm.
done the last 3 years has been so cool, so much fun to see.
Right.
And he's, like, turned himself into a household name. Someone that doesn't even, like, have an NBA contract right now has
Uh-huh.
turned himself into a household name because he's willing to go out and put on a show every All-Star
Hmm.
break the last 3 years. And so much so that now, like, this year, after he won and three-peated, we're finally getting guys like Ja tweeted, Giannis tweeted, saying, like, maybe
Yeah.
maybe it's time for us to get in the dunk contest.
Yeah, and that's like I don't know. Like again, what we all want. It's just like because Mac had said like after the fact that he was maybe considering like this was going to be his last one because he put a lot of effort into it. But I don't know. It's just like I wish this guy now would like get an actual shot in the NBA. Get like because he can play. And again, like the dunk contest, I think a lot of it is about like getting the crowd behind you, and immediately, I think I said it right after his first dunk when he jumped over the car, like he won. Like based on the other three that were just like Castle was pretty good. The one where he went like behind the basket, like after the made shot. Like I think if he would have made that one on his first attempt, that would have been really good. But it took him a couple tries. Mac was like, you could tell he prepped and practiced a lot more than the other guys, and part of it is he's not in the NBA. The other guys play NBA minutes.
Well,
Um,
and see, like, that's what I don't
so
get,
that
though. I
yeah,
mean, if you're talking about, because you just said, like, and I agree with you, that Max should get a shot. And, like, I think it's
yeah,
crazy that he hasn't. Because,
yeah,
I mean, you look at some of the other guys, like, a couple hours ago, it just got announced Killian Hayes signed a 10-day. Like, if
yeah,
Killian Hayes is able to get another opportunity,
yeah,
like, for anyone, like, go look up Max stats in the G League this year. He's already won a
yeah.
G League MVP in the
Hmm.
past. He's lighting it up again in the G League this year. And,
Right,
like, I get maybe it's tough because he's on the Magic's G League team. Magic are pretty decent. It might be hard for him to find, like, a place in the rotation, a place on the roster.
right.
But, like, I mean, any team that's rebuilding has roster spots available, there should be no reason you're not at the very least throwing him a 10-day because,
Yeah,
like, he's lighting it up in the G League and he's proven that, like, he's not scared of a big moment. He can go out and
hmm,
perform when needed to. Like, at the very least, I think he should get another opportunity.
yeah. And it's just like I hope he doesn't hanging up. I do think that if some of these bigger names step in, and that he would continue to do it. But like seeing guys like Levine, Ja, maybe Aaron Gordon, like some of these
Yeah.
like Zion would be fun too.
Yeah.
Some of these bigger names, that would make it so much more entertaining because Saturday is it's a big like Saturday night is a big night, and I think this year kind of like as the new format was, we didn't really know what we were going to get on Sunday, and Saturday was a better night because Sunday just sucked. It did. It was
Yeah.
horrible.
I mean, I think in general, All Star Weekend was a dud. Like
It was.
Mac in the dunk contest was kind of the only bright spot.
Yeah.
Dude, the new All Star format, like I just can't get over how much they fumbled it because
And yeah,
they
it's
had.
just
I mean, in in theory, the format of doing it like tournament style could be great. And I even think, I mean, going back to what I said last week about them doing it even like a 3-on-3 tournament style, I think that could be cool too. But
yeah.
if they're gonna break it up and like show it the way that they did um this past weekend, it's like screw what I said before about the 3-on-3 tournament, like go back to the old
Yeah.
format because the amount
Hmm.
of commercial breaks, like random timeouts. I mean, in the middle of the game,
Yeah.
in the
That's
finals,
okay. Yeah.
we had a
Yeah.
timeout that turned into a like 15-20 minute commercial break.
Yeah.
Like it was ridiculous.
So yeah, I saw this. I came across this stat. It was a 3 hour segment, roughly two and a
Yeah,
half to
I
three
saw
hours.
that too.
2 hour play.
Yeah,
31 minutes and 23 seconds of basketball was played.
yeah. Like it's
There was not a single game that went over 11 minutes. Like it was that. Like it was bad. It really was. Like Draymond was on the crew like before like covering the game for TNT, and he obviously everybody like has their thoughts on Draymond. He said it perfectly with the Rising Stars. He goes, "These guys should not be on the floor with NBA All Stars. These All Stars are guys that worked their butt off the whole year, the whole first half of the year to get one of their very limited roles. There's a lot of snubs every year, um, and for these rising stars, like these guys are going to be the future. Like these guys, there's a lot of all stars in the rising stars, but no way, shape, or form should these guys be on the floor at all with with the all stars. Like they can have their rising stars challenge, like play against the other like Team World or whatever it is. Let the all stars be the all stars. Like I said, go back to East versus West, two teams. There's nothing wrong with it. I think you give them money or you play for charity. Some kind of there's a way to get more effort. And I think as much as people don't really want to admit it, LeBron was another big reason that this flopped because he didn't show up till Sunday and then he backed out. He said
and
like a
and
couple
and
hours, like 4 or 5, yeah,
and
and
yeah.
did play, and
Well, I
it was
mean,
like 5 hours before, and that's when LeBron backed out. It's like if you knew this far in advance, like tell people, like Giannis, like tell somebody, like make it known so you can have someone replace you. But LeBron again didn't want. I don't know if it was like an ego thing or whatever it was. And then he had that picture too where he wasn't suited up. It was all bad. There wasn't a single good thing from Sunday. There wasn't.
I mean, I think I saw there was a rumor floating around that apparently LeBron saw the schedule. Like he was already on the fence about playing, but then he saw the schedule for Sunday night and how there were going to be all those breaks and stuff, and then he kind of just like
Yeah.
checked out of it
Yeah.
because he didn't want to risk like injury or something like that. Because you think
Yeah.
about it, like you're playing,
Yeah.
you're all warmed up, ready to play, and then they take a 20-25 minute break in the middle of the game And so the guys
Yeah.
just all got to sit there
Yeah.
while they're doing their presentation, and Kevin Hart's coming out and making fun of the players, which is great for
Yeah.
viewership, by the way. Having,
Right. Right.
yeah.
Right.
And then,
Yeah. Yeah.
so I mean,
It's
I guess I don't really blame him in that
no,
aspect.
but again, I just if you're on the fence, just like I don't know, like if you look like Giannis, just he backed out a week and a half or so, a week before, and then he ended up suiting up, like he dressed for the picture and everything. He didn't play obviously, but I don't know. There was just so much wrong with the whole weekend. Like Silver completely dropped the ball again, and meanwhile, while this is going on, you have USA versus Canada hockey. They're fighting each other in the first 9 seconds. That was so much more entertaining, and I arguably would have rather watched that. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Right. Well, and I think what also hurts it too is that, like, sure, it's an exhibition game.
Mm-hmm.
You're not playing for anything other than money for charity. But the one entertaining aspect of the All-Star game in the past is that, guys are pulling up from half court. There's crazy lobs and like put back dunks and
Yep.
crazy stuff going on because guys are allowed to freestyle a little more because the defense is more lax. And
Yep.
like there's the argument both ways. You want them to try, but also like it's really cool to see. I mean, what was that? Was it Dame and Donovan Mitchell or something like that?
Yeah.
A couple years ago, going back and forth,
Mm-hmm.
draining half court shots,
Yeah.
and then
And th-
and then scores.
mm-hmm.
The score ends up being like 180 in like the 180s. But
Yeah.
there's no chance for that to happen this year because the
Mm.
scores were capped at 40. So
And then
at
there's the whole scoring record too. Like that
mm-hmm,
can't get touched.
like it'll never get broken again. Like
Yeah,
I
I hope they go back. I hope Silver can see all the backlash that they
but
got, and they just go
I
back
and
to it.
I think too. I think they should steal from the NHL. I think Giannis talked about it.
Yep.
I think with how global the NBA is now, I think there's no reason they couldn't do a Team World versus a Team USA game.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
I
like and
think that
that
would
would
be
that would be
yes.
great.
Yeah.
Think about a team with Giannis, Luka, Jokic, Embiid, Siakam. I'm probably missing a couple bigger names too, but like that would be super fun to see against a team of American-born All-Stars. Shea would be on the team world also.
Hmm.
Um, but I don't know, man. Like they gotta figure something out because that's just
I just yeah, it was so bad. Like so much of it was just I don't know. There wasn't anything right. I think their best bet is to go back to East West or probably go to Team USA versus Team World just because of how international the game is. Um, like you haven't had an American MVP winner since what Harden.
yeah,
So like it's been half a decade, and the top three this year are international players. Like as LeBron, KD, Steph, like those guys filter out of the league. It's gonna get more international. Like obviously you have young guys like Ant Cooper Flakes coming in, the Thompson twins. Like you have these young Americans that are good, but I just think that it's such an international game, and they need to take advantage of that. And All Star Weekend's the best way to do it. And even KD tweeted too. I think he's like, um, at this point, just give us a week off and just don't do anything. Like the Pro Bowl is a joke in the NFL, and the All Star game is starting to get towards not that level, obviously, because like Pro Bowl just is horrible. But and then I just think like with NHL, what they did, perfect. So entertaining to watch, and I don't know. Silver's got to figure
and
something out
and
because this just
dude,
doesn't work.
and we get to watch Team USA versus Team Canada again tomorrow in the final.
That yeah,
Like that
yeah, yeah,
was yeah. So I mean, I don't know. The
yeah,
NHL has it figured out, and I get that it might
and
be a
yeah,
culture thing too. Hockey
yeah,
culture is a little bit different than basketball culture.
mm-hmm.
Um, but I don't know, man. Like, yeah, Adam
Yeah.
Silver's got to figure something out. or the players committee, they got to figure something out because just the whole presentation of All-Star Weekend from Saturday to Sunday just sucked. It was bad. And
Yeah,
and
it
then on
was.
top of
Yeah,
that, now like we've had to sit here Monday, Tuesday, went like there's one game tonight, but now basketball it'll be back, tomorrow for us on Thursday.
yeah. And okay, there's one thing I found this quote that I wanted to bring up and get your thoughts on it. Another reason why the NBA struggles is because you have media that publicly bashes the sport. Stephen A. the other day, quote, because they were talking about who's the next face of the NBA. First take, horrible. I haven't watched it in a while. He goes, I don't believe an international player can be the face of the NBA. I know they're global iconic figures. Their popularity extends globally, but the NBA is an American-born sport. And I'm just like, who's gonna tell him for the last 6 years who's been running things? Like, since LeBron, there hasn't been an American that stepped up. Like, international players are just better basketball players at this point, and you guys just need to accept it. You know?
That's insane. I didn't hear that quote
Yeah,
before. That's
yeah,
crazy. I don't know how you can even make that argument. Because yeah,
right.
look at. I mean, if you put together a Team USA versus Team World, like the Team World is freaking stacked. I mean,
Yeah,
arguably, if you're ranking top 10 players, how many of them are international?
right.
That's crazy.
Because like, yeah, I
Well,
think just a lot of it is that like all the really good American player like in the 2010s and 2015, like when Steph and LeBron were in their prime, like going at it for a couple years, like that was KD was there too. Harden was good. It was like those were the guys, but then Giannis and Jokic kind of were like one right after the other. Giannis was the first one, and then Jokic, and now the past couple years it's been Shea, and then Wemby. We knew who he was like when he was 19. We're like, all right, this kid's gonna be a freak, and he has been. And it's just yeah, Luca obviously
hmm
is still great. I mean, we had a whole tangent on that last week, but it's an international sport, and if you have guys like Stephen A, who's I mean, I don't like him, but he's a big voice.
well,
People listen to him, and if he sits there and bashes the sport, that just kills your ratings.
and not just like him or ESPN, but also like I hate to say it, inside the NBA,
Yeah,
like
that's
Chuck
yeah,
and Shaq, all
yep.
they do, as funny and as entertaining as they are,
They're
love
entertaining. They're like
love
great.
inside the NBA, but all they do is hate.
Yeah.
Just it's so much hate and negativity about the way the game is, about the way it's played, about the
Mm-hmm.
players doing this and that. It's so much negativity. And like that's their biggest media outlet for the NBA. Any
Yeah.
any clip from
And
them on a Thursday night is going to go viral. So, and people that watch the NBA casually probably are only tuning in on like,
yeah.
Wednesdays or Thursdays when it's on ESPN or TNT. And so if the media coverage that the casuals are receiving is Stephen A talking crap about the NBA,
Right.
is Chuck talking crap about the NBA on Wednesday and Thursday nights on national broadcasted, like what does that say to the casual fans? How is that going to draw them in? Like it's not, and
Mm-hmm.
there's no wonder ratings are in the tank. Like
Right. Right. Yeah. But yeah, they got to figure something out. Like this second half will be entertaining. The playoffs will be fun, but like Silver's got to figure out something to do because you're never gonna catch the NFL. There's nothing you can do to catch them in ratings. You just can't. They're the top of the top. But if you're not careful, like the NHL is gonna pass you. Like
I mean, well, and
based on where,
there's no and
yeah,
there's no reason that the NBA should be in the tank
right,
because you look at all the media markets and you look at how much talent there is spread out
yeah,
across the entire country in
mm-hmm.
those different media markets with players. I mean, the NBA is arguably, I think, the most talented it's ever been.
Right.
and the trend is just continuing, upward. Like
Hmm.
players are only going to get better as time
Yeah.
goes on. So like, there's no reason the NBA should be struggling.
Yeah. It's just yeah. I think a lot of it is media is just it's pretty negative. Formats. I don't know. Silver's in love with tournaments for whatever reason. Like, don't get me wrong, the in-season tournament, great idea. I love it. But you don't need a tournament for everything. You know, some things just work like one team versus one team. Like, just keep that for All Star weekend, and maybe even go back and forth. Maybe like 1 year or like every 4 years, it's like Team USA versus Team World as you start to integrate more international players and like so at least it's not like the same teams, every year.
Mm,
Like maybe every 4 years do Team USA versus Team World, but like figure out something to do with just two teams because that's the format that works and that's what people want to watch. Like this tournament, these four teams, it was horrible.
yeah. And I guess just to end this segment on a positive note, I did write down one other thing that I liked about All Star Weekend, and that was all of the videos that I saw from guys like on the court before the game or in the locker room throughout All Star Weekend
Yep.
with their kids.
Yep.
I
That
I
was
love
phenomenal.
like seeing
Yeah.
Giannis with his boys running around, seeing Deuce running around and interacting with all of the players. Like
Yeah.
that's so cool, man.
Yeah.
I
That
found there's an account on Instagram. It's literally just NBA kids, and they just post videos and pictures of like NBA
yeah.
players' kids like interacting on the court, and I think it's so cool. And I love too how Giannis has been kind of like at the focal point of kind of like bringing the family aspect onto the court,
Yeah.
because I feel like we really hadn't seen that a whole lot, here and there. Um, there was, I mean, that was forever ago, but that clip with Riley Curry when she's sitting on Steph's lap.
Yep.
Um,
Like having them for the press conferences, and it's really cool to see. Like obviously, like players, the beef within players. I think it's a lot of like it's not. There's no beef. Like there's man. It's I think all manufactured within the fans. Like you see how like all these players interact. Like because like
yeah.
the but large majority of them are fathers. Like they get it,
Hmm.
and it's really cool to see. Like you said, all of them interact with each other, with the other players, and like obviously you and I both know how Giannis is with his kids, like his family in general. It's a big deal, but a lot of these guys are fathers as well as basketball players, and obviously like I have my thoughts about Tatum, but never once have I considered him to be like he's a phenomenal dad. And if you watch him in the starting five, like Deuce is entertaining as hell. Like, he's
Hmm.
so funny, and he is Tatum's mini me. And just to have these guys bring their kids along, like this weekend is a really good weekend for them.
Yeah.
Um, to just interact with the other players and just to see kind of what like how they like what their dads do basically every single day. You know.
Hmm. Yeah, and I mean, I think that's something that the NBA should like focus more on, especially during All Star Weekend, because Um, I mean, I think it really shows how much of a brotherhood the NBA is, and how
Yeah.
much of like
Yep.
how much of a family the
Mm-hmm.
NBA is. Because like obviously you'll have beef throughout the season between players and whatnot, but it always seems like it's on the court, and it never
Yeah.
really goes past that. But we don't get to see the behind the scenes that much. But All
Yeah.
Star Weekend is a great opportunity to highlight that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. Next, moving into our next topic, we have our NBA tier list that we were going to cover last week, but we decided to move it into this week. We have 5 tiers. The lowest one is hot garbage. Next up is bright future. Then we have stuck in purgatory. One piece away, and then obviously we have our contenders. So
And we
I'll
should
start first.
clarify too, this is post trade deadline, post All Star
Yeah.
break, so going into the end of
Yep.
the season, kind of where we think um,
Yeah. Yeah.
each team is sitting towards the end of
Mm-hmm.
going into the end of the season.
Mm-hmm. All right. I'll start first with my hot garbage. I had two teams. I have the Hornets and I have the Wizards. Um, The Wizards are obviously are. I mean, they lost Kuzma. They have Jordan Poole's like their only scorer now. They have Chris there to help mentor the younger guys, but they don't really have like I don't know like they had, 6 wins or is it 7 wins maybe? Like they're not. I don't see anytime soon where they have any core player to build around, and I think that's what like you need at least 1 or 2 pieces, and they don't have that. Like Jordan Poole is just there to chuck up shots. I think like he's a good player, but like not a franchise guy at all. So it's just trying to find that next piece, or that I should say that foundational piece is what they need to do to get out of this tier. And then I did have the Hornets because even though they have LaMelo, like Brandon Miller, it's still kind of like I expected a little bit more. I know how young, like that they're very young, but I just expected a little bit more out of them. LaMelo's been there for a couple years. I know he's been hurt, but you obviously need to build around him. But outside of that, I think I haven't seen much from Brandon Miller. He's averaging 21.5 this year, but still not much. And then there was a whole Mark Williams trade that fell through. That could have been helpful, but now you have a kind of a disgruntled Mark Williams as well, and that is just not great. So those were my two.
Yeah, mine's actually pretty different than yours. I didn't have the Hornets in my
Okay.
bottom tier, but I had 5 teams in my bottom tier.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So I had the Wizards also, but then I
Mm-hmm.
also had the Bulls, the Nets, the Sixers, and the Pelicans. Um, Sixers and Pelicans, I'll get to that in a sec, but I mean, Nets, Wizards, Bulls, I mean, those 3 teams I think can all be lumped together in kind of that like they don't have a superstar right now, like a young piece to build for the
Yeah.
future. Nets have Cam Thomas, but I don't think he's staying. I think he's going to be a unrestricted free agent, I think, this
Mm-hmm.
off season. Um, and also just the way he plays basketball. He like
Yeah.
he chucks.
He's a
It's
hooper. He's a hooper, man.
Yeah, he's a hooper. He's a scorer, and like that's not. I don't know. I mean, sure, like that's fine for the Nets team
Yeah.
as constructed, but that's not gonna be championship winning basketball. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and aside from him, like who else do they really have um,
Like
on that
I
team?
was I was wanting them. I think if they would have moved Cam Johnson, that would have been a big help. They got a haul from Mikal Bridges. Like that's why I think part of it for me is like why I didn't put them there is because like they have like draft capital. Obviously they don't have um like you said a foundational piece. They're a bigger market, so like if they find a piece, it could. But I don't know. It's like I didn't expect them to be like. I think if they would have been like really bad this year, I could have put them in that tier. But I just think like they have some draft capital. They have some like solid players, but I don't think they're I mean, your reasoning makes sense. Like they don't have a foundational player. That's
Right,
a big reason
right.
why. But yeah, I think they have some draft capital. They have a chance to um get a good amount for Cam Johnson. I feel maybe Cam Thomas as well. But if they get a good haul back for both of those guys, I think there's a chance they could be set up pretty well for the future.
Yeah, but see, I mean, that's also banking on them hitting on the draft picks,
Yeah,
And I
that's
mean,
true.
like that's unless they're drafting, top 5, top 10, sometimes that can really just be a shot in the dark.
Mm.
Um, but Bulls too, I think fits in there super well. I mean,
Yes, they
no
were
first round
like,
picks for
yeah,
what was it, Caruso, Levine. Um, they let Demar. Well, I mean,
Demar. Yeah,
yeah, like
yep, yep,
the fact that they
and
didn't get
yeah,
any first round picks back for that. I mean, your best
yeah,
player right now. I mean, you've got an aging Vucevic and you have Kobe White.
yeah,
You have Lamella or
Lonzo.
Lonzo coming back off an injury. Um, I think signing him to that extension was a good move for
Mm-hmm.
them. I mean, you have Matas, but I don't know. I feel like he's been okay.
Yeah,
hasn't been like
Yeah.
an outstanding rookie.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I just feel like they're in a really weird position. Um,
Hmm.
I really think that, the pieces that they could have used to gain extra draft picks, maybe some younger players, I think they kind of fumbled.
Yeah.
Um,
I think. Yeah.
yeah.
I just think that I think part of like I think for a lot of teams in these tiers, I think there's a chance that like I'm trying to not be trying to be optimistic, but it's like I want to see how they perform. I'm trying to base it off like now and how they perform after the deadline could really like could affect this tier list. Obviously, am I expecting anything for the Bulls? Absolutely not. Like they are just a horribly run organization, and I feel bad for Kenny Beecham because he has to make content on the Bulls all the time, and just his reaction after the deadline. I think they had like 6 point guards, and they didn't move like any of them. It was just yeah. I I don't blame you for that one because the Bulls I think are they were so stuck on like okay we have this core but this core isn't healthy but like when they're healthy like they're pretty good but they were never healthy and you needed to move on earlier and now you got nothing for them so
Hmm.
I don't see any promise in them
Yeah.
but again they could be something but for now I don't think they're that bad but they could definitely drop down there.
Right. Yeah. And then the Pelicans and the Sixers, I think both those teams are in pretty similar
Yeah.
positions. Sixers are, I mean, arguably in a better position.
Okay.
Because they have Jared McCain. They also have Embiid as a trade piece. I think if they decide to blow it up, but they're stuck with Paul George's contract.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's
if
yeah.
if they can be convinced to move on from Embiid, I think that's where they're going to see their biggest success. Because if they can get off of
Yeah.
his contract and his unwillingness to play,
Mhm.
and they can get draft picks in return or get younger players in return who are actually going to be able to play back to backs, actually going to be able to play more than 60 games in a season. I think
50 would be
Yeah, I
realistic.
think McCain and Maxey like should be your focal
Yeah.
point to build the team around. Um,
Yeah.
and then the Pelicans too. I mean, they're they've been. I get that they've been so injured this year, but
And
I,
that's why I kept him out of the tier because like we just it's tough.
right.
But I
But
yeah,
I get that
but
I get that it's tough, but also I mean, you then make the move. You move Brandon Ingram, but
yep,
then you hold on to Zion. You hold on to Dejounte Murray. I know he's injured. You can't really
he's
trade him.
injured. Yeah, right.
Um, but now like they're in a position where like I think they need to go full reset because
Yep.
now you're going to be banking on Dejounte to get healthy. You're going to be banking on like healthy production from Zion,
Yeah.
and then you have to try to build a team now without Brandon Ingram. You got to find someone to fill his role. And I mean they have good pieces too, like Herb and Trey
And Eves,
Murphy. Um, Jose
Eves Missy.
Alvarado. Well, I'm saying that they could trade.
Oh, trade. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, obviously, I think Yves Misi has been phenomenal this year. I mean,
Yeah,
they definitely hit on him. Um,
yeah,
but I don't know. I feel like they're in a position where they should just blow it up.
yeah.
Because they have a lot of
Uh,
valuable assets, but as constructed, those assets together just like haven't been producing winning basketball.
yeah. And I think that like I mean looking at like they got money tied up so like Bruce Bowen makes 23 mil a year. CJ makes 33, Zion makes 36. So like Shanti makes 29. But like yeah, if you can get off of those contracts, which you probably can pretty easily, um you have some like younger pieces that you can try to build around. But I am yeah, it was just really unfortunate they got hit with injuries, but I don't think they were going to be any better
Right, because
even if they were healthy.
yeah, because even at full strength, I mean, last year they were. I think Brandon Ingram was hurt for part of the year last year.
Yeah.
I can't remember, but they were a playing team last year, and
Right.
I get wanting to maybe test the waters and see what they could do, when they're
Hmm.
fully healthy, but also the West is so tough. Um, I don't see them ever breaking into that top tier of teams without just blowing it up and doing a full reset.
Right, right, right. So
You, yeah,
that
let's
was all
move in.
your hot garbage ships.
Yeah, let's move into the next tier.
All right. I had how many did you have? Because I had eight. I had eight.
One, two, three, four, seven.
Okay. My eight were Raptors, Nets, Magic, Pistons, Jazz, Spurs, Trailblazers, and Kings. Um,
Ooh,
I'll start. I'll start first with the Raptors. I'll just go in order. Obviously they made the move for Brandon Ingram. They signed him to extension. They have Scotty. They're in a good spot. I think. They're not at the bottom tier. They're not stuck in purgatory because I don't think they're paying anybody too much that they shouldn't. Like obviously having Ingram there, he seems pretty happy there. He seems pretty comfortable. Um, Obviously this year is not their year. But yeah, I think they have some solid pieces they can build around, and I was very surprised to see Ingram go there, but I just didn't know how they were gonna fit. Um, but yeah, I think they have a chance to be a playoff team, um, even next year already. I mean, they're 17. I mean, they're 17-38 this year, so that isn't great.
shout out Fetty
But
Wap.
yeah. But yeah, I think that having a, having making the move for Ingram was the right move. Because I think it's similar to like Pascal. I think with the Pacers, where it's like it's a good move if you can convince him to stay, and it was pretty quick extension. So, yeah, good for them.
Yeah,
Moving on to
I had
yeah.
him. I had him in Bright
Yeah.
Futures also.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like that core, with Ingram, Scotty, R.J. Barrett,
Yep.
Emmanuel Quickly, Grady Dick, like that's a lot of solid young pieces, and um, they've got Quickly and Barrett on good contracts. Scotty's,
Boucher's there. He's solid too.
yeah, well, I think he's a free agent coming up though.
Is he?
Yeah. I mean, Pirtle, I don't know when he's a free agent, but he's a solid piece
Mm-hmm.
too. Um, but yeah, like I think they've got a nice young core. I don't know what they have for draft capital, um,
Mm-hmm.
but they're definitely a team that, like, especially if you can see like if Grady Dick can take the next step, um,
Yep.
and like those young pieces that they have on decent contracts, I think they could be a team that sneaks into the play-in tournament like as soon as next year.
Mm-hmm. So I had the Nets. I kind of went through my reasons earlier, but yeah, I think they have some draft capital. They're 20-34. They're not. I don't know. They're just an interesting team because like they don't have um a franchise player yet. I think it's all going to come down to can they hit on a player, and I think they have a lot of draft capital to have a good chance to hit on one. But I think if you move Cam Johnson, move Cam Thomas for some draft capital, some um, younger players, younger star players, you'll be in a good spot. But I think it should come down to like, can you hit on a player? And with their draft capital, I think there's a good chance they hit on at least one.
Hmm.
But but see the Magic, I was like, I don't know. I don't think they're one piece away. They're a couple pieces away, but they took a big leap this year. And I mean, Jamal Mosley deserves a lot of credit, but Paulo, you kind of saw it last year that he was like ready to like he was on the verge of taking that next step, and then this year he did. They dealt with a lot of injuries, which really sucks. Wagner tore his ACL, so that sucks. But Paulo was out for a couple weeks, so maybe a month or at least a month, I think.
And Franz.
But Franz was out too. Um, but yeah, Paulo is your guy. He's having 23-7-5 this year. Just finally a star, borderline superstar. Um, but building around him, you have young guys like the Wagner brothers, Anthony Black's good. They got KCP in free agency, and that was a solid pickup. But yeah, I think they're a couple pieces away. They got a very bright future. They got a good coach. They should be happy. They're probably gonna be first round exits this year. But honestly, if you stay out of the play in, which there's a good chance it's at 7 seed right now, 2.5 behind the Pistons, so they could stay out of the play in. But honestly, win a playing game or two, and I think you'll be all right going forward.
Yeah, I think so my bright futures list, I had Jazz, Hornets, Trailblazers, Raptors, Pistons, Magic, and Spurs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think bright future says it enough. Like they all have great young pieces already.
Yeah.
And some of them, I mean, a lot of them are going to have more great young pieces coming in with draft capital, either from like them not making the
Mm-hmm.
playoffs or from trades that they made. Like,
Yeah.
I think if you're a fan of any of those franchises, um,
Yeah.
it might be tough now, but I think there's a lot of optimism that can be
Mm-hmm.
had for all of those franchises as a whole.
And with the Pistons, I want to bring this up. It's like you see the jump they took this year with Bickerstaff. Like it just goes to blank on his name. Um,
Monty,
Coach who's Monty. What was Monty doing, man?
it's
Because
kind of crazy when you
Bickerstaff
think about it.
Bickerstaff found something in Cade and found something in this team that like you're above 500 now. Like like you have your core pieces. Same thing with Portland. Like they turned it around quick mid season.
Hmm.
Like but I think Pistons and Trailblazers are very similar, where it's like you have a lot of young pieces. Uh, Pistons record wise are better this year, but Portland I don't know if they're still on the heater, but they won like 11 of their last 12 or something like that. Like they were just on a heater. Um, but I think they're very similar teams, and then you have even the Jazz are kind of like you got Walker Kessler, Lauri Markkinen. Like you have guys that you didn't move on the trade deadline. You had a high asking price, rightfully so. And then the Spurs are the Spurs. Obviously, we know what Wemby is. They got Fox at the deadline. They're a playoff team next year for sure, and within the next couple of years, they'll be contending for sure.
Hmm.
So. And
Yeah.
then the last one, I'll just say quickly, was the Kings.
Yeah.
Um, it's just like you move off of Fox, you got Levine, but it's just like you're a playoff team, and like you've kind of taken a little bit of a step back from a couple years, but I think you're still in a decent spot. You got Keon Ellis, like Sabonis is still there. You didn't like get totally ripped apart when Fox left. Like you're still okay, and if they play their cards right with their young pieces, they'll be fine.
I see. I had them in the stuck in purgatory tier
Okay.
because I mean, thing is, ultimately, like you make the move to get Zach Levine, you
Yeah.
you have Demar and Sabonis already there. Um, but there's a lot of unknowns. I feel like with that team right now. Obviously, you have the
Yeah.
draft capital, but Keegan Murray's a big unknown because he's been super inconsistent. I
Yeah.
think Keon Ellis is a really good young piece for them. Um, but then the rest of that team, I mean, Malik Monk is solid. But I don't know if he's going to stay once his contract's up. So I don't know. I had them in my
Yeah.
next year. Um, kind of go through those teams quick here. I had Hawks, Suns, Timberwolves, Kings, Heat, Warriors, and Clippers. Um, I think like
Okay.
my criteria for that was like, is there a clear path to a championship? Is there a clear map that or blueprint that they're following
Yeah.
that's going to lead them to a championship? Um, for all of those teams, I feel like no. You look at
Yeah.
teams like Clippers, Warriors, Suns. I mean, those are teams, they have aging stars that
Mm-hmm.
they're kind of stuck in like a weird cap space where they can't really spend any money. Um,
Yep.
and they're just not because of how competitive the NBA is across the board. Like, I mean, you're
Yep.
seeing it with the Suns. Having
Yep.
Kevin Durant on your team doesn't even guarantee that you're going to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
that's just how good the NBA is.
Hmm.
And then a team like the Clippers, you have to bank on Kawhi being healthy. And then you have an aging James Harden, Norman Powell, thankfully for them, coming into his own, having a career year. Um, they were obviously made the right move, letting Paul George walk.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, and then Warriors too. I mean, you make the trade for Jimmy and you give him that extension, like 2 years, 120 million for someone who like that could very easily just be his last contract and then he's out. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and to pair with Steph is kind of crazy. Like I get you want to make the move to maybe shaking up things helps them compete more.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know. I mean, we talked about it last week, like them having to trade away Poole, them not hitting on um, Kuminga or on Wiseman, but I don't know. I feel like they're in a weird spot where they have to compete because they have Steph,
Hmm.
but I don't think they're going to be able to make it back to like championship level before Steph ends up retiring.
Yeah. So, okay, I had similar ones. I had Pacers, Heat, Hawks, Bulls, Sixers, Pelicans, Suns, Mavericks, Clippers, and Warriors. Um, the Mavericks were one piece away, and then they traded Luca. So now you're in purgatory. The Suns, I think, are just like you have all these. You have Beal, Booker, and KD. Like KD's probably gonna get traded this summer, and you're not championship level. You're not. You might. I don't think you'll win a playoff series this year at this rate. Um, the Pacers. I don't know. It was like I don't think I can say they're one piece away because like I'm not 100% bought in on Halliburton.
But
Like,
how can you
um,
how can you not though? They made the conference championship last year.
yeah, but I think a lot of it was like who they went up against. I don't know. What's their where they're so they're 30-23, 4 seed right now. I don't know. I do think if they run into like a healthy Bucks team this year, last year I think it would probably a different story. I'm just like the Pascal move was good. They kept Pascal. Halliburton. I think he's taken a step back. Um, he's I don't know. He's averaging okay. He's 18, 4, and 8 this year. On 45 and 37 shooting. I'm not bought in. I don't like that one piece would have to be like a major piece, and I just don't see a way that they can get that. I think just collectively, there's a lot of guys that need to take a step, and I don't see that happening. So I think right now they're in purgatory. But I think if some of those younger guys start to step up, there's a chance. What were some other ones that were different? The Heat. I don't know. The Heat were weird because it's like you traded Jimmy. Like you got a good return for Jimmy, but it's in 25-28 now. They haven't been great since he's left. So there'd be a play-in team along with the Hawks the Bulls are there too. I just don't see, at least right now in the next 2 to 3 years, any shot that you're the conference finals again. That's just
Like,
how
yeah,
I view it
they're a team.
based on the other talent in the conference.
Yeah, they're a team that needs to commit to a rebuild, but won't yet for
Yeah,
whatever
because
reason. Especially
they're
considering some of the young guys that they've hit on. You
mm-hmm,
can build around Tyler Hero. You can build around Khalil Ware. You don't have
yep,
to trade Bam. Like they could
yep,
theoretically
yeah,
do a soft rebuild by trading away some of those pieces they got from Jimmy for draft capital. I mean,
yeah.
maybe you trade Bam if you could probably get a decent haul for him
You
too.
get a good haul for Bam, yeah.
Um, Like,
And
yeah,
the
because
Hawks are like the Hawks might move on to Trey, so then they're really kind of like,
see, I
yeah,
mean, that's a team too. They're so young. I just don't know. I don't think Trey fits their timeline anymore.
yeah.
You know?
And that was, I think, that the big reason with like Shea when they drafted him. It's like, does it fit with Trey? Because there was talk. I think I could be wrong. I think there was talk like even last like when they had the top pick that they were going to move on from Trey because he doesn't fit their timeline. And now it's just kind of like a murky situation there, where I do think Trey could be moved this summer,
Yeah.
just
Well,
so they have the right timeline because Trey just
right.
doesn't fit there right now.
Because their timeline now with Risa Shea, and with Jalen Johnson is set
Mm-hmm.
back a ton. Like
Dyson Daniels is
Dyson
starting.
Daniels
Yeah.
too. And I mean, it's not a bad position to be in because
Right.
they've hit on a couple young players in the last couple years, and now
Mm-hmm.
they have um, this like star who's in his prime in Trey Young, who would be a phenomenal
Yep.
trade piece to whoever wants to take him.
Right. Right. Um.
For my next tier,
Mhm.
the on the fringe tier, I had Pacers, Rockets, Lakers, Mavs, Grizzlies, and Bucks.
Okay.
Um,
I had Grizzlies, Rockets, Timberwolves, Lakers, and Bucks. Those were mine.
yeah. So, I mean, I guess I should say too, Timber with the Timberwolves.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I had them in the purgatory tier because I think that their championship window was opening, and then they traded Cat, and
And it's not.
now it's closed. Because now they're stuck on that Gobert contract. They're stuck on the Julius Randle contract.
Yeah.
You have an aging Mike Conley. You're lucky that you have Ant, because if they didn't have Ant, they would be in a far worse position than they already are, and they're
Yeah.
not in a great position to begin with. I
Like
mean,
McDaniel's is good.
la-
They
la-
got Alexander Walker, but
it's like
it worked.
last season,
It
yeah,
worked.
last season they were what, a game away from the finals.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
and it took Luca single handedly carrying a team
Mm-hmm.
past them in a game seven in the Western Conference Finals. Didn't they finish with the same record as the Thunder last year, who had the one seed, or they were like a game
Because
behind?
yeah. So Thunder went 57-25. So did the Nuggets, and the Clipper or Timberwolves went 56-26.
Okay, so they were a game back. Like,
So
you
that
were
because
right
remember
there.
like that, yeah, that
Yeah,
last week was
yeah, I
like it was
remember.
those three were, yeah. But yeah,
Yeah,
you were right
you were
there.
right there, and it's because the owner didn't want to pay, didn't want to put him in the second tax apron,
Yeah. Yep.
and
And
I
the
just I
Gobert
just
move, it was a bad move to begin with.
right,
It was. It didn't
because
make sense at all.
yeah, and then I guess you look at like they apparently make the trade because you feel like you can get more for Cat than you could for Gobert, but
Hmm.
I mean, in my opinion, you just cut your losses with Gobert, because
Right.
giving him that contract to begin with was idiotic. And then
Right.
you have Naz Reid too, who could easily step in and play the five. Like,
Hmm.
six man of the year, like he could be a starter.
Hmm.
There's no reason he couldn't. And like, I get that you might not get a ton for Gobert, but I still feel like moving off of that contract and keeping Towns is more valuable than trading away your franchise guy who's been there for a decade
Right.
and getting back Julius Randle.
Hmm.
Um, yes, I don't know. I feel like they're in a real weird spot right now, and
Hmm.
not in a place where they're like one piece away either.
Yeah,
Especially
I
with how
think.
hard capped they are now with those contracts.
Yeah,
Like,
I only had that because I was like, you're one piece away. Because I was like, there was the cat was there. That was your one piece, and then you
yeah,
just removed it. So like, if you can find someone, but you can't. I just think they're in a bad spot, and yeah, we'll see what happens. But um, and the other two teams I think that are really intriguing are the Grizzlies and the Rockets.
yeah,
The Grizzlies we saw last year were like brutalized with injuries. Like they were like just a couple weeks in, you're like
right.
chalk this
Well,
season. Like
because 2 years
um
ago, just 2 years ago, they were super competitive, and then
yeah,
yeah,
and
they
you're
got
like this is
bombarded with
they're young
injuries.
and now it's like
Now they're back.
yeah, Jaws healthy, Jaron Jackson's good. Taylor Jenkson's phenomenal coach. He was in Milwaukee for a while. But yeah, I think them and Houston are very similar where it's like they're young and like in a few years they'll be at the top with the Thunder,
Hmm.
I think. Um Even the Rockets too, they have so many. Like Jalen Green, Eamon Thompson's a stud. Şengün is just he's like a mini Jokic. Plays very similar. But yeah, I think they're like on the fringe. Piece away. I mean, there's talk about like KD if he gets moved this summer, does he go there? But they're very hesitant to give up their draft capital and their young
Right.
pieces, which is smart. Um,
But also,
do
I
you
don't
give it up for a KD in his age and situation? I don't. I wouldn't. You know.
see.
But
My thing though is that like they're already talking about potentially moving on um, from Jalen Green. So I
okay.
mean, if that's already in discussions in their front office,
Mm-hmm.
um, just because I think his style of play doesn't fit the team super well, I feel like you could
Mm-hmm.
easily move someone like him, a Dylan Brooks, and a couple picks in a trade package for KD. Um,
Yeah.
like that could be a move that
But
you
yeah.
make. I mean, they're so young, and they're so young too. Like if
Yeah.
they decide not to go all in this year, this off season, they still could in the future with how many
Mm-hmm.
young assets they're gonna have. There's so many moves that they could make to become contenders like quick.
Right. Right. They don't. Well, we both had Lakers and Bucks in here as well.
Yeah,
The Lakers. One piece away, and I think that piece was Mark
Mark
Williams was the
Williams.
center.
Yeah,
If we both agree that if that trade had went through, that would have been all right. Pelinka, you didn't do anything wrong this year. Like you did what you're supposed to. Even though it fell through, like they're good. They got Luka now with LeBron, so like their timeline is now extended. Once LeBron retires, but you don't have that big. Like Alex Len's there, but I just think you have guys like Chet and Jokic that are just gonna kill you in the paint, especially Jokic. Like Jokic has killed the Lakers in the past, and I think there's a good chance. I mean, Luka's there, so like that obviously helps him a lot. But I don't know. One piece away. We'll see. Maybe Alex Len could be something. Maybe they could figure it out. Just offensively, just blow teams out. But that really is a big hole in their lineup because it's what Alex Len and Jackson Hayes like. That's not going to cut it.
yeah. I mean, like the only reason I had them here and not in championship tier is because the Mark Williams trade fell through.
Right.
Like,
Right.
yeah, you said it perfectly. If that trade goes through, I'm bumping them up a tier. They're 100% championship contenders.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I
And
had
then the
I
Bucks.
had Bucks here, yeah, because
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's a lot of unknowns with the Bucks.
There's so much. Yeah.
Like Kuzma hasn't played with Giannis yet. Giannis has been out for like the last 2 weeks
Mm-hmm.
now. But I still think that there's a chance potentially that Kuzma could be that missing piece.
Yeah, and
Um,
that's where I was at. I'm like that one piece could
yeah.
be Kuzma.
Mhm. I mean,
That lineup could be very interesting
yeah.
because they're faster now. They're longer,
Hmm.
better defensive team. I think. They got shooters around like Gary Trent's been phenomenal this year. We've talked about AJ Green. Dame is Dame. But yeah, I don't know. It could so much unknown, and these last 30 games are going to tell a lot for this team.
Yeah. Well, and playoff basketball is so different too.
It
The
is.
game slows down, which will play into their favor in general.
Mm-hmm.
But then having Giannis and Dame on the court together, which we haven't like seen in a playoff game yet
Right.
either. Um, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of unknowns with the Bucks, and yeah, these last 30
Mm-hmm.
games, you're right, are going to be super telling as to
Mm-hmm.
like what kind of team they're going to be going into the playoffs.
Yeah.
And then my championship tier, I had five teams. I
Yep.
had Celtics, Nuggets, Knicks, Thunder, and Cavs.
Yeah, but same 5 as mine.
Yeah.
I mean, clear cut. Like these guys are. I get that the Nuggets have been like struggling, but there was that one stretch, but that was
They
only when
haven't been
Jokic was
though.
out. Yeah, but like
I
I'm saying that like when Jokic was
early
out, that's
on.
when they were struggling. But now,
They've
yeah, now they're
they've hit
fine.
their groove. I wrote down here, going into the All-Star break, Nuggets are currently on an 8-game win streak, and they've won 16 of their last 20.
Yeah,
And so they've been very quietly creeping up the ranks, like in the West.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Half game behind Grizzlies for the 2 seeds. So, but
yeah,
yeah,
they're right there.
I do think that like it's Thunder Nuggets conference finals seems to be. I mean, the Lakers could be there, but I just think like Grizzlies and Rockets, they're like a
They're
year
young.
or so. Like
Yeah, they're not
young.
there yet.
It's very similar like last year with the Thunder. It's like, yeah, you guys are good, but everybody was like, we know the playoffs. Like play in the playoffs, get eliminated, and then you're good.
Right.
You know, and that's all it takes. It just takes that one learning experience, and then they'll be good. They'll be fine this year. They got Caruso, like Chet's healthy for now. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I think Nuggets and Thunder are really the only 2 contenders. And then obviously you have the defending champion, the Celtics. Cavs have taken that. The 1 seed, so you can't bet against them. And then the Knicks are like, you just kind of expect them to be there.
Right. Well, I mean, they've been so good this year. Like the addition of Cat has been so huge for them.
Yeah, it fits so very well.
Going into the All-Star break, they won 9 of their last 11, and that was without OG. Like OG's been hurt for a while, and Mitch Rob has been hurt this whole season too, and both of them are coming back from injury really soon. So like you get a Knicks team that's went into the All-Star break hot, and now they're going to be adding OG Anunoby and Mitchell Robinson to that team. Like Knicks are competitors for sure. Celtics, I think too. I mean, we talked about obviously, they're not as dominant as they were last year, but I think you made a good point where you said like, is it that okay, they proved it last year, they can win all these games, blow all these teams out, and try hard in the regular season, and then back it up with a championship. Now maybe they're throwing it into autopilot a little bit. Maybe they don't have to try so hard to get themselves to the playoffs and back
part
competing.
Of it was like the Cavs got off to that hot start. The Celtics started a little bit, and they're like, do we like put a lot of effort into like chasing Cleveland, or do we fully believe that like, all right, they have that pedigree over the Cavs, they have that experience, they know what it's like and what it takes. The Cavs, like, they've won a playoff series every now and then. They haven't been that far yet. I'm curious to see how they do, assuming they get that far. Like, talent-wise, they can get there, but it's like, how will guys like Donovan and Mobley and Jarrett Allen, how will they respond? You know? Yeah. The Cavs they made that move. They got DeAndre Hunter, so that was a big positive for them. But I do think more of it for the Celtics is that, like, we know what we have. We don't really need to try. Get to the playoffs as a top 2-3 seed, and we'll be good. Like, we know when it matters.
Yep.
So
exactly. All right. So to finish things out, we are finishing with the segment that we're calling Around the League. We each wrote down a couple things that we want to talk about. What do you have up first?
So, I went to UW Green Bay, and we had a solid program. Let's say solid program. Last year, we had a coach, Sundance Wicks, flipped the program around, and then he went to Wyoming, and now we have radio show host Doug Gottlieb, who has just buried the program. They won their first game in like 3 months the other night. They're 3-24 now, so good job. Anyways, so Doug had some comments about LeBron and Bronny, how like LeBron is the reason Bronny's in the league is because of LeBron, and it was like not an earned opportunity, it was given. And then LeBron clapped back and he said, Earned, not given. Got to give him credit though. So for me, as someone who like kind of follows the team, it's a very surprising to see LeBron like that he's like still I won't say follows, but like has the time or decides to give the time to Doug. Doug should not be there at all. He should have been fired a long time ago. He shouldn't even been hired, honestly, because he still does his radio show, which baffles me. Because your team sucks and you don't focus on basketball. But yeah, I thought it was just interesting that LeBron decided to give Doug essentially a free promotion because, I mean, you're not good at coaching basketball. So, LeBron, your props to feel how you want to feel. People obviously have their thoughts on Bronny. He's killing it in the G League, though. But yeah, that was just my initial thoughts on the whole situation.
I mean, I don't really think it's a free promotion as much as it is just LeBron dunking on Doug Gottlieb. Like,
yeah, but no, I'm saying just, people don't know who Doug Gottlieb is.
yes,
a lot of people
do.
didn't until LeBron.
That's okay. That's not true.
I don't know. It's a funny situation, but
yeah. Also, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but he's not getting it fired because he has a clause in his contract where
does he?
Nice. Where his buyout is ridiculously high. Currently, I think his buyout is higher than the total amount of money that the UW Green Bay men's basketball team made last year. So they can't afford to fire him. So yeah, their UWGB.
Well, I don't go there. I don't go there anymore, so I don't care. So,
yeah, UWGB is unfortunately stuck, but I mean, whatever.
They had one good deal last year. So.
Yeah. All right. So my first topic that I wanted to talk about came from All-Star Weekend. I don't know if you saw Evan Mobley got interviewed. Someone asked him, "Who do you think the best player in the NBA is going to be in 5 years?" Did you see this?
Yeah. I saw it, but I didn't see his response.
He said either me or Wemby, one of those guys. And look, man, I love the confidence. All respect to Evan Mobley, first time All-Star this year. And look, sure, he might take a Jokic type jump where it's, later in his career, it's not right away in the first couple years. But dude, comparing yourself to Wemby like that,
right?
I don't know, that's craziness.
Yeah, I think again, everybody's like, oh, he's not gonna say himself, but you could have not said yourself. We get it. It's just be a little realistic.
Yeah,
I don't know. But hey, yeah, love the confidence, but yeah, you'll be a good player, couple-time All-Star, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But maybe champion, we'll see. But yeah, to say he's on Wemby's level is
right.
Yeah.
Right, because I would already argue that Wemby's a better player than him now.
Yeah, he is.
And
no offense, bro. You fit the
good
Cavs,
player.
You fit the Cavs.
Mm-hmm.
You fit the team great. Talent, pure talent.
Yeah.
No. But,
all right. What else you got?
This was one that just came out today. It's Wednesday when we're recording this. LeVar Ball, everybody knows who LeVar is. He had his foot amputated due to a severe medical condition, so thoughts and prayers to him. But big smile on his face in the picture. We all love LeVar. How he was when his sons were first in the league. Curious to see how what happens after this, but I just thought it was a very interesting situation, and I hope everything continues to go well. And by far the most shocking thing I've seen today. So
yeah. Not going to be swerving, bending that corner. Whoa, anytime soon.
He'll be on Premby's account.
Yeah, back on Premby's account. But hey, I mean, 2 push-ups. That's all his body requires.
Yeah, we love LeVar.
To be honest, Michael Jordan's probably in a really good mood now because now he's the best basketball player in the world again. now
Yeah.
that LeVar is down to one leg.
I
Like,
think he did him a favor, honestly. I think
true.
yeah.
He probably
So
saw,
yeah.
yeah, he felt like I've been on top of my game for so long. It's time to give everyone else a chance.
Yep.
Become the second
So
best basketball player of all time. Now that I only have one
right.
leg.
Right.
So my next topic that I had. So you remember there was that string of break-ins. Bobby
Hmm.
Portis's house got broken into. There were, I think, a couple players on the Grizzlies. Their houses got broken into.
Okay.
And then obviously like Mahomes and Kelsey and Joe Burrow,
Burrow. Yep.
their houses all got broken into. So there was an update that came out today.
Mm.
Um, Apparently all of those are connected.
Oh.
Yeah, all of those burglaries happened by the same people.
How?
Yeah, so there was a report ESPN published today. It says, according to the criminal complaint, seven men ranging in age from 20 to 38, all from Chile, were part of a South American theft group and are accused of stealing more than $2 million in valuables. So apparently, this type of thing is super common in South America to have like an organized crime group like that.
Mm.
But I just think it's crazy that like it made its way up here, and they were able to target like so many people's houses, and like big public figures like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that's crazy that they're all connected and that
yeah,
they gotta wait. They were able to do all these not consecutively, but like all of these
I mean,
major
pretty close
pro
together.
athletes. Pretty yeah. But
Yeah.
but yeah, I think the last one we'll finish it off with. Chris Haynes broke this news last night. SGA has parted ways with his representation and is now serving as his own agent. This is one we don't really see too often, especially for like a guy in SGA spot that is like on track to win MVP this year. So I don't know. I don't know what your initial thoughts are. How this maybe helps him, hurts him. I don't know.
Um, I don't know, man. I think,
I don't think it's a smart move personally, but
yeah,
like,
because I mean, I'm trying to think back, even just across pro sports in general. Is Lamar still his own agent? Lamar
um,
Jackson? Because otherwise, I don't really know if there's any other time that we've seen like a big name in pro sports where they're deciding to represent themselves like that.
he does not. He does not. He still is his own agent.
Yeah. So I don't know. And I remember specifically when he was having his contract extension talks with the Ravens, like there were
Yep.
issues there.
Mm.
Um, and I think what ended up happening is like I don't know if he was able to negotiate the
Yeah.
best deal for himself.
Yeah, and I just like it's so much easier. Like I remember back when Giannis had his this most recent negotiations. It's like you give your agent a number and they'll call you if they need to. It's just like you have so much more going on that you need to be worried about. You shouldn't be sitting down in these meetings with executives, like all these people that probably know a lot more about you about numbers, money, and this and that. Leave it to the professionals and do what you do best. That's just
Right.
my thoughts on it.
Right, because yeah, I mean, a guy like Shea, your MVP candidate, MVP
Mm-hmm.
frontrunner, um, on arguably the best team in the NBA right now.
Right.
Um, and now, yeah, it's like you have you have the money to afford an agent, you
Uh
know?
huh.
Like everyone in the NBA does. Every pro sports
Uh huh.
player has the money to afford a good agent who's going to get them
Mm-hmm.
the best deal. I just don't understand the decision to do it by yourself because
Yeah.
I think it only hurts you
Yeah.
because you
And
talk about you're negotiating with these front offices who negotiate tons of contracts every single year with tons of players and tons of agents. And now this is going to be, his first time having to do it for himself with no help, going up against a front office who, like, that's literally their job.
Yeah. And a really good front office in
Mm-hmm.
OKC. Like they built. I mean, if they play their cards right, they could build a dynasty here. Like, and SGA is like is their focal point, and I don't see it ending well for him. Like, obviously he's gonna get his money, but it's like you can hire people for you got the money to hire people for it, and
Exactly.
I think that's what you just got to do. But it's just, again, we'll see how it plays out, but I just don't think it's the smartest move, especially for a guy in his situation.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. All right. Well, on that note, we are going to wrap things up. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to episode 2 of the Fundamentally Sound podcast. Please be sure to go give this video a like, leave a comment, go follow us on social media at Fundamentally Sound Pod on Instagram and on TikTok. And for Zach, I'm Jared. This has been the Fundamentally Sound Pod. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you next week.